16 after 8 o'clock. Welcome back to the show. Our first interview for the morning kicks off now with visiting professor at Wits School of Business, Professor Jannie Rossouw. And we're looking into the issue around the pros and cons of moving Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria. Now, this was first suggested by the ANC way back in 1990, but it was met with strong opposition from the provincial ANC body in the Western Cape, who campaigned against it. Sadly, at the time, the cost to move Parliament to Pretoria would have been 237 million rands. We are hearing that if they now decide to move sometime soon, the cost to move Parliament would probably be in the region of about 7 billion rands. If that figure shocks you, then let me tell you that the saving then, if Parliament moves from Cape Town to Pretoria, it's going to cost them 7 billion rands to move. But the savings will be between 500 million to 700 million rands annually. The move will be permanent, but the annual savings will be between 500 and 700 million rands annually. And I think they can recover the 7 billion rand for the move in a very short space of time. So let's look at other pros and cons regarding this move with Professor Jannie Rossouw. A very good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show, Professor Jannie Rossouw.
Good morning, Julian. Good morning to the listeners.
Nice to have you on the show. And I've already unpacked one of the pros regarding this move. What else would work in the favor of the country and government to effect this move rather sooner than later?
The move, Julie, is around the question whether South Africa should have a unified capital or whether we should have the three pillars of government spread through three, in this case, four different cities. We must remember that other than Pretoria being the seat of the administration and Cape Town being the seat of the parliament, Bloemfontein is the seat of the Court of Appeal, and Johannesburg is the seat of the Constitutional Court. So if the drive is to unify these three functions of government, we also have to debate the pros and cons of moving the Constitutional Court to Pretoria and the Court of Appeals from Bloemfontein to Pretoria. So it is a bigger debate than Parliament. Secondly, I must say that in 1990, when that figure of 237 million was published for a move of Parliament, I just never believed that figure. It was way too low then. It could not have cost that. Thirdly, I have to make the point that Parliament is now burned down, and of course Parliament must be restored. By moving Parliament, we will still have the cost of rebuilding the current building in Cape Town. It can't just be left there as a ruin in the middle of the city. So it's not a saving in terms of the restoration of the building where Parliament is housed. Currently, that building has to be rebuilt.
So, Professor, you're talking about is it important or is it, if they move, if government decides to go ahead and move Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria, should the other moves also happen? Uh, or
Yeah,
can
if the drive is to unify the, call it the pillars of the democracy, we should not only focus on Parliament, we should also focus on the Constitutional Court and the Court of Appeal, and then go for a full unification. Because having Concord in Johannesburg and having Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein, those also incur additional costs to our democracy.
okay, we obviously we're now talking about a massive project. We're talking about relocation not only of Parliament, Constitutional Court of Appeal, etc., all these courts. It's about the uprooting It's about, just in the case of Parliament, approximately 1,400 staff and their families. Uh, the city of Cape Town is saying that this is going to harm their economy. It's going to have quite a negative rippling effect on the economy of the city of Cape Town. And I should imagine the same would go, the same can be said for Bloemfontein and other moves as far as unifying these pillars of government is concerned.
Yeah, indeed. But the biggest would, of course, be Cape Town because Parliament is a much bigger setup than the Constitutional Court or the Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. In respect of the move of Parliament to Pretoria, one would really have to unpack the cost estimate of 7 billion rand. In my view, it can be even more expensive than 7 billion rand. You've already mentioned moving 1,400 staff members. It will be necessary to build new parliamentary villages in Pretoria, not only a new parliamentary building. We have Acacia Park and others where we house uh, MPs and other people working for Parliament, and these people will have to relocate to Pretoria. MPs will have to get accommodation in Pretoria as they have in Cape Town. So it will be necessary to unpack the 7 billion very carefully to see whether that will indeed cover costs. The benefit, of course, of moving Parliament is the ongoing saving, the annual saving. As we've heard, somewhere in the region of 650 or 700 million rand. So over the long run, given that sort of number, there will be a net saving in moving Parliament. There is, of course, another option, and that is to rethink the parliamentary program in the way we had before 1994, where Parliament sat only 5 months every year, not for the whole year. Parliament was in session only from February to June and managed to get through all its business in the February to June period. So if we can restructure the parliamentary calendar back to what we had before 1994, we might also have savings from such a restructuring.
The EFF for a long time have been calling for the move of Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria. But it's the first time, I must say, that I've heard that it makes sense, good business sense, and good governance in moving the Constitution Court and the Court of Appeals as well to Johannesburg. Can Parliament
Sorry, to
move,
Pretoria.
pardon, to
Not to
Pretoria?
Johannesburg, yeah, to Pretoria.
To
Um,
Pretoria, yes.
I, yeah, I apologize for interrupting you.
No, no worries at all. No worries. Uh, can it work? Is it a workable solution for only Parliament to move to Pretoria and not the Constitution Court and the Court of Appeals? Is that a
Yes,
possibility? And then also
yes.
let's look at the issue around the relocation of all these people that work at these institutions and their families. It's an uprooting of a large number of people. Do you believe that it really would impact negatively on those cities if all of these people move to Pretoria?
Would impact negatively on Bloemfontein and Cape Town to move the people. Johannesburg has a very big economy. If you look at the, call it the regional economy of Johannesburg, moving the Constitutional Court will probably have no impact on Johannesburg's economy. Bloemfontein and Cape Town will be impacted differently. To come back to your first question, it is completely viable to move only Parliament to Pretoria and leave the Constitutional Court and the Court of Appeal where they are, thus doing only the move of Parliament, not all the functions of government to be included in such a move.
I've been focusing mainly on costs here, impacts, negative impacts on the city of Cape Town, costs in the moving and relocation, and just it just makes better sense to have a Parliament possibly operating from the union buildings because there is that structure that is available. But is there more more to this than meets the eye in terms of governing the country. Does it truly make sense to move Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria? Are there any
We
other issues that we're not looking at that could have an impact directly, indirectly, positively, and negatively?
Well, the first important point, of course, in your last remark to focus on is we can't move Parliament into the Union buildings. The Union buildings, as we have the complex today, is fully occupied by the presidency and the deputy president with their staff. So moving Parliament into the Union buildings is not an option. It will be necessary to build a new building to accommodate Parliament, and one can debate about suitable land where to build Parliament. There are a few options that one can think of, but the Union buildings as we have it today cannot accommodate Parliament. Then, of course, the initial drive to move Parliament, not in 1990, but under the Zuma administration, as you said, things that we didn't look at. At the time, the Zuma administration was very unhappy to have Parliament in a city not governed by the ANC, but at that time by the DA administration, the DA local government in Cape Town. So they wanted to move Parliament away from a city under the administration of the opposition. Things have now changed in Pretoria, and Pretoria is also no longer under control of the ANC. At that
Mhm.
time, Pretoria was under the control of the ANC. So from that perspective, the appetite for moving Parliament to Pretoria, especially amongst members of the ANC, might be less so than, say, 10 years ago when Pretoria was still governed by the ANC.
Okay, so as we speak, we understand that most recently in February 2021, the Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management supported Parliament's move to Pretoria. And the co-chairperson of the committee, Dikeledi Mahlangu, has said that although the committee is mindful of certain onerous processes that still need to be followed before a move could take place, the committee is in full support of the idea. So I imagine that they're already thinking along those lines, that this is possibly almost a done deal.
I would not consider it a done deal. In my view, a lot of debate will still have to take place. And I would also like to see detailed cost benefit analyses on the matter. I have no view on whether Parliament should be in Cape Town or whether it should be in Pretoria, but I would like to see a full cost analysis of the benefits and of the costs to see what is being included in the figure of 7 billion rands. And then the other point I have to make, Julie, is in any relocation of Parliament, there will be huge opportunities for the ANC government to steal massive amounts of money. And I simply do not trust the government. If a cabinet minister in this country looks excited about any project, we must know that there's an opportunity to steal, because our cabinet ministers are only excited when they see opportunities to steal. So the control, the financial controls over any move of Parliament to Pretoria will have to be watertight, or else we will see stealing of taxpayers' money like we've never seen before, simply for the reason that there will be many contracts issued in the building and in the relocation. So from that perspective, I'm very hesitant to say it is a good idea. The, but I should add, similarly, in the rebuilding of Parliament, there will be huge opportunities for corruption and stealing, and I'm as concerned about the rebuilding of Parliament.
And I concur with you on that issue. Our hard earned tax money will be lining the pockets of the greedy, the greediest of the greedy in this country, and that's, of course, politicians. Having said that, let's end on a positive note. What would you like to see? I'm thinking we've been told already that the rebuilding of the Parliament building in Cape Town would probably cost us taxpayers R1 billion going forward. Again, and you said it's an opportunity for a lot of stealing and lining of pockets. Either way, whichever way you look at it, we still in the middle, and we are still going to cough up and pay with our hard-earned tax money.
Well, in short, we have to rebuild Parliament. We can't have a ruin in the middle of Cape Town. So the R1 billion to rebuild Parliament, we will have to spend in any case. If it's going to cost R1 billion to rebuild the existing building, surely the move of everything to Pretoria must cost more than R7 billion if I just
Mm,
compare those two figures. But
mm,
South African taxpayers will have to be very vigilant in checking uh, the rebuilding. And my solution is that all contracts issued in respect of the rebuilding of Parliament should be published for public scrutiny. Publish all the contracts. After all, government is using our money to rebuild our Parliament. Why can we not see what is uh, done in terms of each and every contract? Let's give it to the media to scrutinize. It's the best control we can have to prevent corruption in the rebuilding of Parliament. Total transparency is what I plead for.
Professor Jannie Rossouw, I couldn't agree with you more. A brilliant idea, and let's see how this is going to unfold. Thank you indeed for your time. Go well and have a great day.
Thank you, Janine.
That was Professor Jannie Rossouw, visiting professor at Wits School of Business, talking to us about the pros and cons of moving Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria. Coming up, Dr. Ibrahim Harvey, political writer, analyst, and commentator. We're going to be looking at the issue around Lindiwe Susulu's uh, opinion piece regarding, or her opinion piece taking a swipe at the judiciary and the constitution. So we, inshallah, will be unpacking that a little more with Dr.